You are listening to Kaper's 32. This is episode 3. This episode, we're taking you back in time to 1979. We're going to be talking about one of the biggest mainstream hip-hop tracks of all time, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, it's about Rapper's Delight. Check it. The story of Rapper's Delight. Pay attention. One of hip-hop's first cases of plagiarism. Hank was Grandmaster Kaz's manager. He worked at a pizza joint and rapped Kaz's words. While he worked, people heard him rap up front. One day a record executive set for lunch. She heard Hank rap a song from Grandmaster Kaz, then convinced him to sign as a rapper fast. Hank didn't say this song is my client's. He took the record contract and signed it. She put him in a group he never met before. Within a week they're in a studio, set to record. As the Sugar Hill Gang, he was Big Bang Hank. Used his client's rhymes, but never gave him thanks. Since then, Grandmaster Kaz can't forget it. He even tried 3 times to get writing credit. Can you believe that shit, man? Imagine your manager steals your rhymes, goes and records and makes millions of dollars, tours the globe for like 15 years spitting the same shit that you wrote and doesn't give you credit at all for this shit, man. That's fucked up. They even stole the beat, kind of on some fucked up shit too. Check it out. They sampled the bass line from Good Times by Chic, but didn't get permission before the time of release. And the writers of Good Times heard Rapper's Delight, took legal action for royalties and got all the rights. It sold 2 million copies just in the States. Worldwide like 10. That's up for debate. It won historic awards from publications and millions been compensated in litigations. First time on the radio, it hit with power. To keep phone lines open, they played it twice an hour. 15-minute song, twice an hour, it's stupid. People called stations to buy thousands of units. 36 years later, the song is iconic. Documentaries, interviews, and articles on it. First mainstream hip-hop track of its time. It's the story behind the scenes of Rapper's Delight. Look, so that's just an example right there of how people have been stealing rhymes and stealing beats since the beginning of this shit. When that first mainstream hip-hop track hit the radio, this shit was already fucked since Jump Street. You know what I mean? This is how hip-hop is. It's hip-hop. All right, so this is Kaper's 32, episode 3. Basically, what we do every week is I write a 32-bar verse, come into the studio and drop it, record it on an old beat I have laying around. Got a couple of those laying around back at the crib. Pick a topic. This week we went with the song Rapper's Delight to kind of shed some light on that. Got my co-host right here. He's on fire. Tim Hansen, how you doing, man?
Oh, good, man. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going great, man. Tim Hansen is the engineer here at North Village Recording. Every week, he's the one right here. He owns this place, so we come in and we have a good session, man. We've been recording together for like 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. How many years now?
I mean, it's been. It was 2008 when I came back from St. Louis. And that's when me and Teep started doing Volume 1. So we were recording before that, right. Though. I mean, in Red Oak and in Providence Hill, I think when your mom's crib. I mean, there were lots of instances where we recorded. I mean, I can think back as far as like even with like Thomas, right, and like Whitney and some of the, you know what I'm saying, like way back, like way back. So I mean, we're talking about like at least probably half our lives almost. Yeah. I would say, though, since, well, not half our lives.
Well, I think really when you came back from St. Louis on where you live now, at that spot where Heezer's Palace was, mm-hmm. That spot I think is kind of when I can consider it really starting.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's definitely that was the turning point for sure. Like, I kind of came back with the mind state that I wanted to, like, really do this differently. And
we were doing, like, cold cut stuff at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd already had, like, The Greatest Thing out for a while, but not technically out, but out there, done, But recording
there were like 20 different
Zero.
Demo versions of it, I think, that were distributed around the town,
So we've already recorded and released probably 100 songs recorded with you as the cold cuts and solo songs that I've done on that.
I would say that's a very fair guess. Yeah, absolutely.
So now we're doing this weekly thing, and man, I'm liking how this is working out. And this week was a good topic for me, man. being able to shed some light on an old song, Rapper's Delight. Came out in like 79, man.
Right, yeah.
It's just crazy. I wanted to like talk about the bad sides of it, you know, not to be like to focus on the negative parts of it, but I wanted to express that side of it.
Sure.
Rather than have it be like,
I mean, like when you consider that the first like major song of the genre, you know, in terms of like impact and like radio and like that kind of stuff was like really
fabricated and
like
stolen.
I mean, yeah, like
this
dude was like managing
this
guy and stole
so
his
how
rhymes, man.
How it breaks down. Grandmaster Caz was in a group, the Cold Crush, and he had a manager. It was a solo manager just for Grandmaster Caz. It wasn't for like the whole group. How it actually turns out, and he ends up like he has this job where he's working in New Jersey at a pizza parlor, and he would listen to Grandmaster Caz's raps, like to his tapes as he worked.
Yeah,
and it just so happened that Sylvia Robinson from Sugar Hill Records was looking to like exploit a rap group. You know what I mean? They were looking for rappers out there to put a group together to like manufacture a group.
Right.
And she just came in there to eat, and he's rapping, and she's watching him make pizza and rap. So she like asks him, and there's different like interpretations of how it actually happened, but from what I gathered on interviews, that she just basically was like, "Hey, man, let's record what you're spitting right there," and he went and did it. Like he was down to do it, and within like a week, I think it was just a week, they had actually had it recorded, and like we're starting to get into the final production stages to like shop it out,
right,
and to get it onto like to not shop it out, but to get it onto the radio. You know what I mean? So, that's crazy, man. And how they recorded it was fucked up. Like, first off, they paid some kid and some drummer to come in and just like lay the beat down and play it like straight through for 15 minutes. Because like back then, I guess they didn't have like MPCs.
No, they weren't sampling anything.
Yeah, they didn't.
Yet.
Like the SP1200 wasn't even out yet.
I mean, even like when you go to like the West Coast, they were still like the early Too Short records were done with live instrumentation for the most part. Like very little sampling. There was almost always session players or a band brought in to do these records. Yeah.
So they paid some kids to just come and lay it down for like 15 minutes. So they had that part already done. But when they actually had the rappers come in and lay down the vocals, apparently they did it in like one take. Like first try, one take. Just like laid it down. I don't know why they did it like that. Maybe they might have been concerned about studio time and could only afford an hour in a real studio.
I mean, back in the day, too, you're recording to tape. You know, you can't just like... You know, punching in was really complicated.
Punching in was complicated.
If the engineer fucked up the punch in, you could ruin the whole fucking song. So, I mean...
Right.
It's you know, back then working in the analog world, I mean, yeah, that's why there used to be these ridiculously large budgets for albums and stuff, and that's the reason why it took them so long to produce them too, was a lot of the process that you know, was time consuming.
Yeah, so that's just like already right there. So they stole the bass line from the song Good Times by a group called Chic. And this dude, Nile Rodgers, had actually, like, I guess I saw an interview with him. He tells a story how he's like partying with Blondie and they're going to like watch these hip hops in like different boroughs in New York. Mm-hmm. And they're actually like juggling the break of Good Times, of his song. And he's going and seeing people do this live.
Right.
And he's like, he's cool with it. He's like, whatever, you know, they're just like using it for their party. And even like, he had some show that he was playing one night and there was rappers hanging out with him. And like in the middle of Good Times, some rappers jumped on stage and were rapping over that part.
Right.
But he actually heard the song in a club on record like a couple weeks later. And that's when he like was pissed off. Because he was like, wait. People, like, it's one thing to, like, have rappers jump on stage with me and, like, rap along to me playing this instrumental section of this song. But
Right.
When they put it on a record and like mass produce it and start to make money.
Yeah.
That's when the shit changes. So up to that point, though, the writers credited on the song were the Sugar Hill Gang and Sylvia Robinson.
Right.
Up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And the record had only been out for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So after 3 weeks, Nile Rodgers and his homie Bernard Edwards come and actually get... they actually get... Oh, wait, hold up. Heezer's taking his Instagram photo of the session. We're doing that live. Boop!
I can't believe it took a good photo.
I should have put 32. Which way is 32? If you're looking at me, is it that way or am I doing 23?
I don't know. On the selfie cam, it's probably backwards. There you go. There's 32.
Is that 32 right there?
Yes.
Okay. We just took a picture. We're gonna put that on Instagram.
Yes.
I don't know where I was with that. It doesn't matter. Let's see. But yeah, anyway, man. Just a whole lot of fucked up shit about this song as far as like stealing the rhymes and stealing the beats and where the money actually went to. Because in the long run, what I was saying about that, now that I remember, is that Nile Rodgers threatened to sue as soon as he found out that this was being like put on the record and then mass produced. So he threatened to sue, and instead of like getting a cease and desist, he actually got all the credits to him and Bernard Edwards.
Right.
So from then on, 100% of the royalties went to Bernard Edwards and Nile Rodgers. Man.
Yeah.
And we're talking about an album and singles and the album and like all the different versions of the singles all together worldwide supposedly sold about 14 million copies.
That's insane. In the grand scheme of like royalties and like what royalties really meant back then too, because I mean, you got your money. Like,
right. I don't know how they really break down these days because of how digital distribution is, but I mean, how was it back then? I mean,
gradually over time, if you want my opinion, it seems like artists and collaborators get fucked more and more and more and more as the rules change. And I mean, look at the emergence of the independent market,
right?
And tell me that, the record labels have always had it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, times change though, man. Like, we're in a different era now. But like that, it's one thing though that like it's an interesting thing, the prevalence of like people stealing lyrics. Like, not just in hip hop, but in all genres of music, But like, you've heard about this stuff like in the last like year with like Drake,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Like,
wait, on what aspect of that?
Half of the Weeknd's album.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Was working in the studio with him, and like,
okay,
basically just jacked all this dude's songwriting and stuff, And there are other people too that have come out and have thrown up their hands about like supposed songs that they've written that Drake has stolen from them. But
well, I mean, that becomes a lot of like worth a lot of money.
Oh yeah,
and it's
crazy.
Absolutely.
I mean, dude, you want to talk about like crazy shit, dude? Like Pharrell got sued over that Robin Thicke song "Blurred Lines" over a percussion line.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like the Marvin Gaye song. He lost that lawsuit though. Like, they're appealing it, and I don't know if that's even gone to court back again. But I mean, they lost that lawsuit, man. And I mean, there are people who have points on the back end of that record, like my friend Tony Maserati. They don't get their money though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah. No, you could easily get screwed out of like.
Yeah, and I mean, we're also talking about people who didn't have any. I mean, there was never any ill intent in that situation. That's just some fucking bullshit. Nobody has a claim to a percussion line. That's a ridiculous thing to take somebody to court for. It's even more ridiculous that they actually won that lawsuit. It's insane to me. But.
Well, I mean, there's lawyers out there that can find.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, that thing will come back on appeal, I'm sure, and it'll be settled. But in the meantime, yeah, people's money is being ransomed basically against their will.
Oh yeah, man.
It's not a cool thing, man. The music industry is a real cutthroat thing, and you have to. Sometimes you just got to deal with stuff, no matter how well you protect yourself or. The people you collaborate with, sometimes these things just arise and you got to deal with them. And
well, let's talk about for a second. I want to also bring up. I don't know how much time we got. What time are we at?
You're good, man.
I just want to know. Okay, so another thing about this too is the authenticity of the Sugar Hill Gang was in question, as far as even how real of rappers they were. You know, how legitimate they were even as rappers. It was a group that was just kind of thrown together from guys that were in New Jersey at the time. And I guess that at one point, Big Bang Hank had lived in New York, but not at the time. Apparently, he'd when he was manager, he'd borrowed some money from his parents to fix some speaker systems for the Cold Crush Brothers. But he was paying off that loan, and that's why he was working at the pizza shop in New Jersey.
Right.
And that's where they formed the Sugar Hill Gang, was out of New Jersey. And at the time in New Jersey, there wasn't really rappers like there was in New York. Right. Especially the dudes that were that Big Bang Hank was, stealing rhymes from.
Yeah.
These guys were
South Bronx.
Yeah, these guys were.
Yeah, I mean.
They were legitimate rappers from the heart of where rap was coming from at that point in time. And it was just weird that these guys weren't even so the underground hip hop scene in New York really frowned upon these guys when virtually all the people in the world that were listening to the song at the time had no idea how fake they actually were.
Right. Well, and I think everybody was so blown away by what they were hearing that, nobody would take a second to gander about, the legalities of this.
Oh, yeah.
This very controversial song. Everyone's just like, oh, my God, this is hip-hop. It's amazing.
They also didn't have,
everyone was having their moment.
The ability to, research like we do now. I could get on Google and learn everything about this song and just sit there for hours and learn and learn and learn. But people couldn't do that back then, so they couldn't get behind the scenes and really understand what was going on from that perspective back then, especially. So people just had no idea, on how fake it was. From all angles, too, from the beats to the rhymes to the authenticity of the people's character themselves. It was all fickle, man. But either way, dude, it doesn't matter. They still made a shitload of fucking money.
Yeah.
Even
and they changed
the Sugar Hill Gang themselves.
Forever. You can't deny that, Rapper's Delight, dude, that is, it's right there, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. These are the people who brought, something that was, underground street culture to the forefront. Mainstream radio, later on television, it started becoming an actual musical classification, and not these weird dudes hanging out on the corner breakdancing and spray painting.
Right.
That was the moment that it leveled up,
Right.
And you can't, no matter the legalities of the situation, you can't deny the course of time here. You know what I'm saying? That song just blew people away.
Yeah, and when it was first played on the radio, it blew the fuck up to the point where they had to literally play it twice an hour to keep the request lines from breaking.
Right.
From keeping people from calling in too much to ask to have it played. They just kept it on rotation pretty much on repeat for a 15-minute song twice every hour. That's eating up half the time. It's 30 minutes every hour of this song playing, So it was just hilarious in how they had to do that. They even had people calling, supposedly, from different shit that I read, people were calling the radio station, distributors, asking on how to, obtain 30,000 copies of the record. At one, for a stretch of time, it was selling, 500,000 copies a day. For a while, I guess.
When you think about that in terms of
shit nowadays,
what determines a chart slot, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can be a top 10 genre album on iTunes and Billboard if you sell less than 10,000 copies in your first week.
Also, too, we're
less
talking
than 10,000 copies in the whole market.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're talking about single store orders for 30,000 copies. So, I mean, perspective. I'm just saying, in perspective.
And that's weight. That's like
think about how
cargo.
many people bought Michael Jackson's Thriller. Nobody is going to buy that many records again.
That's cargo, too. Like today, I can hit download, and you can get money. You know, like, it works out good in that sense these days that most people can just download their music. But back then, man, there was people lifting and putting that shit on the crates and delivering those packages of records. A lot of man hours and people got paid behind that, you know? That's why they used to have that, like, there was like a certain amount of copies per 100 copies that were just considered free because they would either be broken. They were like accounted for as being broken on delivery.
Yeah.
I forget what the name of it was. I read about it one time, but I mean, it's horrible to bring it up right now when I don't have it in front of me. But either way, man, we're going to wrap it up right now. Like I said, Kaper's 32, episode 3. Each week, I tackle a different topic. Write, record, and upload a new 32-bar verse. This week, we touched on Rapper's Delight. We did a little history lesson on the first mainstream hip-hop song of all time. So we're going to peace out now. Tim, you got anything you want to promote?
I would love to promote my recording studio, North Village Recording. Absolutely go to our website. It's northvillagerecording.com. Our social media links are there. Information on our rooms, our equipment, releases that we've been involved with. We keep the stream very live on there. Go check it out. Not even if you're an artist who's looking to book studio time for mixing, mastering, recording, or production. If you're interested in some of the artists that we work with, like Mr. Kaper Lucero here, there's a good bank of information and a good feed on all the artists that we work with, because I try to keep it, constant and current and
nice
and all that good stuff. So yeah, go check out the studio's website and keep listening to Kaper's 32.
All right, and I'm your boy Kaper. Follow me. Everything on the internet, just Google Kaper Lucero with a K. That's Kaperlucero. That's it for episode 3. As far as seeing me live in concert, I got something coming up on March 18th here in Columbia, Missouri well, you know what? I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to release the details early, but March 18th, I'm going to be doing a show here in Columbia. I'll talk about it more next week. That's it. See you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.